Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is Reincarnating Enterprise IT. IT is the business. Our guest speaker today is Ms. Neelam Manwani, Operations Director at HCL Technologies. She has 17 plus years experience in IT industry, program management in a multi-service delivery environment, business and technology consulting, and customer relationship management. She has led global client engagements, transforming IT into competitive and disruptive advantage of diverse business domains that includes ISVs, high-tech, media and entertainment, and insurance. Instrumental in developing and managing engagements with Fortune 500 customers, improve productivity and profitability, partnership and growth. She has an impressive fast-track career with proven ability to deliver continuous value to all stakeholders, drives innovation, and thrives for excellence. She challenges the status quo, learns at all the times, and believes to let every team member feel valued, appreciated, and important. Beyond work, she is an avid reader of fiction and paints waters and oils. So without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Ms. Neelam.
Thanks, Mohini. There was a lot of description about me. Thank you very much. Thanks all attendees. We are going through this session, and it's a very offbeat. Topic, I would say. Talks about reincarnation and IT. What we are going to do is look at the new avatar, the reincarnation. It's not about strategy per se. It's not about which kind of industry, whether it is for retail or pharma or product companies, but it applies to all corporates. It applies across industry. I'm excited to look at attendees. Before we go ahead, I would like to just introduce the 5 main sections that we'll go through. I'll touch upon at a very high level, the lexicon of IT and the evolution of IT over the last over 40 years. We would then go over my thoughts and perspectives of how evolution and we've seen the transformation of enterprise IT across all of these years. Thereafter, because every enterprise IT is the key is the CIO, how the IT function delivers, and of course partners for outsourcing services. What are the priorities of the CIO in the new age? Is the CIO driving, or is the CEO or the CTO? We also look at enterprise IT. Has this IT bolted on to business, or it's just the IT function to ensure lights on, to focus to be the critical tool and support business strategy? What are the effectiveness of key parameters for effectiveness of the IT function? Lastly, every IT enterprise does not go on their own. They partner for outsourcing suppliers as well. Many of the IT professionals also on this webinar would be folks who delivered to IT functions for customers. Lastly, once we look at the entire package of what the CIO and the IT function and suppliers contribute to the IT strategy, we look at how enterprise IT are reincarnating. Before I start with all of these topics in the next 49 minutes, I'm looking forward to hear about what all of you understand about IT enterprise, about IT function, about business or technology, and which side of the world have you been? I've looked at the audience across the whole spectrum. Mohini, if you can help for the first poll to be started.
Yeah, sure.
So it's more about have you heard of the IT function, or what has been the role, the priorities. Can I view Mohini? Can you just quickly go through that?
Around 28% of the people have voted and they are still voting, so I guess we should wait for another few seconds.
Okay. Do we have the results, Mohini?
Yeah, Neelam, around 75% of our attendees have voted and 58% of them say yes, they have heard and are part of it. 24% say yes, heard and I'm part of the business, and 28% say no, not heard. So it's
What was the second? I mean,
58%
what is the
for the
percentage for
first
business?
option, 24%
Mm-hmm.
for the second
Okay.
option, yes, heard and part of the business strategy and process, and 29% no, not heard.
Great. Interesting. Thanks, 75% of the audience to respond through. And it's quite a natural one for you all to understand more about technology, because most of us are IT professionals. The key thing in reincarnating the enterprise IT is for us to rethink on the latest technologies, but also go and understand business, the business of the IT enterprises. So in the first section, let's just briefly talk about why am I talking about business? Why am I not only talking about the technical side of IT enterprises? Now, if you would understand about corporate IT, it just, the environment is about applications, about keeping the lights on, about platforms across the networks, intranet, and also goes on to the web. It's all about requirements about security and administration and infrastructure. Is the data center going up? What's the uptime and stuff like that? Who does all of this? It's the CIO, the Chief Information Officer. It's a typical job title that is there in an enterprise, and where they're supposed to be the drivers for supporting the enterprise goals. There have been many surveys which are done by analysts and the business journalists. And we've seen that the state of CIO from 2008 to now, it's not a separate entity. CIOs are actually either reporting to a CEO or a CFO or a COO. It has different areas where every CIO is working on. Of late, according to the latest survey, 50% of the CIO respondents have started saying that they're not just at the backroom engine. They're not only looking at supporting the IT applications, but they're on the operational board. CIOs are working with the executive management teams themselves, and it has seen an increase from the last year itself. 69% of the CIOs now have more strategic responsibility rather than only looking at IT. And hence, the CIO jurisdiction typically, it's not just the design development data center. It has been traditionally in the subsidiary planning for this climate, but it will go on change later on. How has IT evolved? Let me take the era back into 1960s. It's been a very technology era. We've looked at mainframes, huge systems, very complicated. They're still going on, but at a very low scale. The distributed era started in 80s, then moved on to web-based, where all of us were just thinking about www, whether it is of intranets or internet. and as on today, we've actually moved over to a smart computing. It's not just about web applications, but it's about social computing. It's about virtualization. It's about cloud computing. All of that is very different from what typically always the IT enterprises have been. Way back in 1999, and some of us would have been around at that time, the hot topic was Y2K compliance. The enterprises were only thinking about other massive infrastructure investments. What happens to ERP systems? Are there pervasive intranets that they have to look at? And what's the upcoming after the Y2K? How would internet and e-commerce initiatives go on? So from those humble beginnings that you see in mainframe, it has come to a very modern era of smart computing. The traditional backroom, traditional IT organizations are doing a makeover. However, everything is changing. What is not changing is what are the IT budgets that each enterprise has. The graph that just shows you, it's a Gartner CIO survey result. For the last 10 years, the IT budgets have been essentially flat. Where is all the money coming from for a CIO to move out of mainframes into smart computing as well, for moving only out of the back engine room to thinking about business? Nothing much, but still the CIOs have to rethink, and that's why reincarnate. The CIOs are there to drive and decide and deliver. They have to ensure that costs are reduced. The enterprise has to be lights on. The new and the latest technologies have to be looked at. And of course, supporting business strategy. They run a back-end IT function. The IT function, again, has to keep the lights on, but also address the challenges that come in from business and technology. And of course, the IT function and the CIO do not run the organization on their own. And what is important is for them to look at outsourcing. We've seen the outsourcing era also aligned very much to the technology area. Prior to, let's say, the Y2K compliance, everyone was only thinking about on-site. Most of IT professionals, and about 58% of you have been into technology, you would understand that everybody goes over on-site. What's important is for some of us to get a visa and go on-site and deliver to these IT functions. Beyond the Y2K compliance, when it was more for offshoring to be increased, and the offshore team, of course, being as much skilled and talented to deliver to the IT functions, it has a new hat on the CIO function as well. And hence, it also makes it important for the CIOs to think about outsourcing, looking at optimization and innovation, and of course, to plug in the skill gaps that each function has. With the evolution of IT, and for me to introduce the IT for you all, let's think about what's next. Let's look at what CIOs should look at. It's a busy slide, but the leftmost column that you see, you look at all the various parameters where while the business and technology is changing, but then there are parameters like IT spend, where about 70% of the IT spend is keeping the lights on. They have to ensure that applications are up, the infrastructure is on, the data center should not go down. The balance 30% or so is just about looking at spending on improvements rather than just ensuring the lights on. The same for firefighting, let's say. For getting the value of that IT, it's mostly about firefighting. It's not about innovating. Technology and business have been niche areas. The CIOs and the IT functions are only thinking about operational. They're thinking about information. Maybe just about 30% of the time and the effort and the investments that are made is not on researching new technologies. It's not about for a CIO to look at cloud computing, virtualization before anyone else goes and looks at that. And hence, the alignment of IT and business is barely at 30% for everybody to think about business. Everybody is just managing IT. Most of this, 30% of what CIOs are driving at, those are where things are going wrong. And the objective of this environment is to turn around the situation. We have to spend time and effort and money and the people and the skills and everything where it matters. It obviously matters where we're optimizing IT. If you look at it, the turnaround really has to be that about 30 to 40%. In an ideal world, it should be on just keeping the lights on, ensuring that operations and the costs and the administration, all of that is ensured by the CIO. But the balance would be for CIOs to wear a new hat and look at how are they improving. Are they looking at new technologies? Are they thinking business? Is it more strategic, or is it just for IT functions to maintain their applications? That's all an internal view that most of us would have. What's important is for us to look at what are the business strategies for CIOs. Gartner is a key analyst that goes ahead and does year on year what's on CIO agenda. Things are very clear. Look at what's the ranking for business strategies from 2008 to 2012. What you notice here is that increasing enterprise growth, retaining customers, connecting with customers, and of course reducing the costs are the top 3 priorities. What goes down, if you look at the last area, improving business processes have been in the last, from 2008 to 2010, it's been the top priority for CIOs. And look at how CIOs have changed. They, while they continue to be operational efficiencies and reduce costs, but they're thinking about growth, they're thinking about revenue. Now this is more from a business side of things. Let's look at what happens from a technology standpoint. Most of us also keep thinking about what is about technology. It's about analytics, BI. Some of you would have looked at data warehousing. Is looking about mobile, cloud computing as well. Those are all those areas which a CIO should look at in a different way. Way back, yes, data warehouse has been around, but then thinking about product intelligence, thinking about how should we and the business look at the reporting, let's say MSN, how many clicks, how does it go back and tell the business that this is what the consumers are looking at, and hence there has to be a whole lot of change that has to come up for the applications as well. The world has definitely been changing. There's volume, there's velocity, even in terms of storage costs on the cloud. Everything is changing there, and hence the CIOs are looking more at all of these high priority cases now. With the business and the technology strategies that have evolved, the CIO has definitely evolved. From the old era, where the CIO was just thinking about maintaining applications and infrastructure, and it was hearing out the business and the executives towards technology rather than thinking about technology on their own. And of course, it was relationships with suppliers, folks like us, who service the technologies for the IT enterprises. In the new avatar of CIO, even the rechristening has happened. The CIOs are not just on their own at the engine room, but the CEOs are asking them to develop the offerings, for them to connect with customers, for them to ensure that all the latest technologies are adopted. And hence, the I in CIO has changed. It has gone into innovation and not just information. a CIO also has to not just be a firefighter, be more pragmatic, but then be on the two ends. Conservative for every CIO to look at how to keep the lights on and the firefighting, but then also think visionary about business. They have to think about are there any tough problems, or are we only looking at the downtimes and the catastrophe changes? So have CIOs reincarnated? Are they thinking about cost and operations and impact, or are they also thinking about business and strategy and technology and growth and customers? And hence, you would have seen a variety of such keywords for reincarnated CIOs. Once the CIOs have evolved, what's next? It's just not for CIOs to look at the strategy, but for that to have an IT function which has more effectiveness, higher on effectiveness as well. A complicated blueprint of CIOs have formed for the enterprise IT functions. They look at business. They want not just to keep the lights on, but to align with business processes. They have to think about, let's say, what a product, how will a product sell, how will they look end to end. Let's say a product company that is looking at how to make their products and sell. Until the CIO looks at the end-to-end process, how do we ideation about a new product? Can we get leads? Can we sell? Do we have the order? Once if something is sold, then how do we do after-sales services? So the business for the IT function has to align with processes. That ensures that revenue growth is increased. The similar things about technology. It's just not about virtualization and computing technology. The virtualization in the old, not really old, but a few years back, it has led to a logical end product. IT as a service is something that we would have heard already. Virtualization then led on to the foundation as the foundation for cloud computing. Greater agility, have more reliability, and ensure scalability. All of that is more about how technology, IT moves over maybe to a private cloud, to a hybrid and a public cloud over time. But then it's about the IT function to think about all of that. The more cloud computing that you do, the CIOs will also ensure that they're reducing all of the costs. And hence there's a innovation. It should not be CIOs to be followers, but then leaders even when the product companies are looking at the new technology. From an IT standpoint, the lights on have to be on. There has to be agility to respond to business changes. And of course, all of this, the business and technology and IT cannot be without people. People, all of you and me. There has to be career growth. Every IT function will look at employees about how to get them upgraded on or reskill on technology, how for each one of us to think about business. And of course, collaborating with the IT outsourcing suppliers. At the end, all of this delivers where the IT function has the responsibility to connect to the customers, to their connection with their own partners. And of course, all of this is delivered from measuring metrics. The IT function can't just think business, but can also have to think about project and service accountability. All of this makes a full package on what we should be looking at. I would not get into details on the big data and the cloud and virtualization, and I'm sure there'll be very many literature and sessions as well on the net. But it's good for us to look at a few things. One, on how do we combine the business and technology to ensure that IT responds with agility. Before we go on, let me take a small break because we're looking at engage. we have a new poll where it is asking from each one of you on the technologies. Moini, can you bring up the next poll? So for all of you, it's for you to talk about what are the latest technologies like big data and cloud and mobile and all the regular ones which we're looking at. Do you have project experience on these latest technologies? Have you just read about those and heard from your friends and peers, or are those technologies which you've not heard so far? We'll leave the poll on. Okay, so I see the poll open. Be interesting to see most IT professionals that have looked at the attendees count. To see how do you guys upskill, and go and learn and develop.
Neelam, around 68% of the people have voted. Out of those, 19% say that they have project experience on these latest technologies. 82% said they have heard and read about these, and 5% say no, not heard.
The 90% have project experience.
It has varied now. 22% say they have project experience. 81% say heard, read about these, and 5% say no, not heard.
Okay, so that's an interesting statistic. Good to hear that 22% of y'all have project experience, but then it's one area where IT professionals like us would go ahead and look at can we upskill ourselves. The whole business climate is different these days, and it has all the more opportunity for all of us to train ourselves, get onto the latest technologies, and then be on project experiences as well. All of that aligns. There has to be an alignment of business and technology with IT. It's very different these days because the IT estate is not just IT professionals like us. It's about business owners, technologies, the suppliers, business analysts, a varied set of people who are part of the IT estate. What we're looking at for IT functions to think about the right questions, to demystify IT going back to the business, because the business only shouldn't think about business but also about IT. They have to look at how they can utilize on assets. What are the project portfolio that they should look at to optimize and reduce costs as well. Some of these areas out of the direct control of CIOs are also coming up, but then CIOs have to get up to speed, engage the entire IT estate, and get onto the benefits. The benefits are the real IT strategies for a CIO. They got to business, deliver business solutions. They have to manage infrastructure. They have to manage the application portfolio today, and of course managing the governance and improving about that. All of that, the very key message out of all of this would be that every enterprise IT has to be along with business and technology, align the IT strategy to the business strategies as well. From a technology side, I'm not going to go more about the technologies, but then what about consumerization? It's an oft-repeated term that we've all looked at. It has first emerged in the consumer market. It has then later on spread over to business and government organizations as well. Most of us have mobile devices. Do we use only laptops or do we use smartphones? Can we connect to the company network, or are we only using it for personal use? Does the enterprise IT, the IT function, give you any help for your personal devices to be utilized at work? Does the IT security help you in that? We as employees have to look at whether companies are engaged. Are they taking care of consumerization of IT? You would have heard of bring your own device. Consumerization of IT is not just devices. It's more about for us to be on social computing, for us to look at media, for consumers also to look at applications that they use on a daily basis. And hence, it's for CIOs to relook at consumerization, not from a consumer standpoint, but from the business standpoint. There will be collaborative relationships with users. It has to couple that with what facility that enterprise IT function comes up with. They have to ensure that security, the data is confidential, that should not be compromised by the IT function and the user. But once there's a good balance between what the CIOs encourage and the enterprise IT function does, it's all about the IT function to look at how can they save money, is there agility, how can they improve employee productivity. Each employee like us has ease of use with the devices that we have. At the end, aligning IT, as I said, there's one area of engaging and developing employees. Something that the world has heard from CIOs is that there's a gap that each CIO faces in their own organizations about skills. The graph shows you such high areas. It is about 35% of skills that on business analysis that CIOs are looking at. There are many folks on this call itself who have IT, technology-centered skills, but have to pick up on business analysis as well. And of course, the enterprise architecture, management, looking at change, all of those are the areas where CIOs have to empower and get their employees to learn about. What 40% of IT professionals and some of us on the call itself are looking for new jobs. And why would that be? It would be because I want to do interesting work. I don't like the company management, and that's why. That's an oft heard area that you would find from IT professionals as well. And CIOs feel the issues when they look at IT professionals with the dissent. What will make it better for IT enterprises is for the employee engagement model, fostering an open culture, ensuring that recognition for the employees, learning and development, all of the trainings and certifications, how employees are learned so that they can pick up new technologies. Just what I recall, 22% of y'all have done some past project experience, but then and just about 58% have been only on technology. That means the learning and development is not just about reskilling on technology, but reskilling on business, upskilling on business as well. And of course, diversity and inclusion. there are strengths that have to be addressed and the areas of opportunity as well for engagement to the whole hierarchy in the employee front. It all leads to the service quality, productivity. It's about the CIO to think about when employees are engaged. That's where it leads to enterprise IT being delivered. And of course, some of you would have heard about classic philosophy of HCL that we have for employee first, customer second. It's for every employee to be looked at with trust and transparency, and for empowering and enlightenment of employees. Looking into the future, we know that there are new terms that we're looking at. Engagification of enterprise would mean that games and employee engagement put together, or how an employee engagement is will be lead to the indication of what's the performance of the entire organization. That sums up on how we are across business and technology and IT. From an outsourcing services, the industry is changing. The outsourcing partnerships are definitely important for enterprises IT as well. They have to plug their talent gap that they have. It's very dynamic. There are new technologies, and hence the enterprise ITs have to collaborate with suppliers. Let's look at best practices that suppliers and enterprise IT can learn from each other. There have to be efficiencies that the enterprise IT expects a supplier to enhance the capacity. There have to be end-to-end engagements as well to ensure that the quality of service isn't compromised. From a supplier perspective, what are the areas that every supplier should look at? Some suppliers are looking at outsourcing trends where the deals are getting smaller and smaller. Less than $100 million deal that we see up for grabs. Suppliers are attacking those as well, while they're also looking at the new innovative pricing models. It's just not capacity, it's just not time and material, but it's about revenue sharing or outcome-based models, or managed services is a basic hygiene. Of course, suppliers also understand the need of a flexible, skilled workforce, also about offshoring. And of course, there has to be the perfect alignment and strong leadership between the enterprise IT and the CIO and the supplier org as well. How can suppliers go and move from the very basic information to providing innovation? CIOs are not just looking at delivering of for suppliers to look at the lights on. Going from the first few slides that I was talking about, what has gone wrong is 30% of the IT spend or the value. All of that is just about innovation, not about researching latest technologies. And hence, the graph that you see here is the Cano model. It's about every supplier to look at what are the basic requirements that we're delivering to the IT functions. The performance is a must-have for an IT function to look at. The basic and performance are the bare necessities. What takes the customer satisfaction for a supplier with an IT function is on the delight, the excitement. While the basics are more about looking at the right set of people, getting the right skills, are we doing the job right? From a higher performance perspective, it's more for us to think about the business, the alignment and optimization for the IT organization. The excitement really lies on for a supplier to understand about the enterprise roadmap of where the business will go 3 years from now or 5 years from now. It's more about adoption and adding value rather than just keeping the lights on with basic performances. With all of this, the right mix of business and technology and being a service provider, what's the changing focus of enterprise IT? It's more about the operational orientation moving into transformation. The x-axis shows you how the IT is moving from just being an engine room to everyone's IT. And in a more transformational focus, more from an external perspective, it is about the IT function to talk about IT is the business rather than IT just being an engine room. With the enterprise IT taking a different connotation, it would not be mutually exclusive for these 4 quadrants. It may exist in some combination. The engine room has to survive all the time. The service providers have to be there, but it's more about business. And add the CIO priorities and how the new age CIO is looked at. As an engine room, the CIO himself or herself were the engineers, were the brokers. While with the right transformation and external focus on the business, on the industry that's changing, the CIO is becoming the explorer and the pioneer. And that's the whole reason for the enterprise achievement as well, to bringing in the right technologies and deliver on the strategic value. That's the reincarnated enterprise IT. We were not talking about new avatars and the reincarnation of anything but enterprise IT, which moves you from an IT engine room to the business and technology right at the front. That's so much about what I have for the last 40 minutes. The next 15 minutes, I would be glad to answer some of the questions. Okay, Molini, I'm moving on the question.
Sure, Neelam, I've started assigning you the questions.
I have done it. Okay, so I have a ton of questions. The question from Anshuman Mishra, that on which parameters the stages of IT environment are differentiated during an interval of months in a year. See, the stages of IT environment over years would be based on what's the business for that particular corporate. Are they looking at reacting or answering to consumers who are, let's say, consumers from users of the internet? If it's consumers who are looking at every month, I'm going to look at some proposition that a corporate or retailer also can position online. During the interval of could be 3 months, could be even a month. There have to be daily updates on content. There have to be merchants thinking fresh about what are the stages of IT environment. The reliability has to be up, and the time and the scale has to be up all the time. Anshuman, does that give a fair view about the parameters and the stages of IT environment? Okay. There's one more interesting question. It's a question from Santosh that can I say IT is pure business? Not really. IT is aligned to business and technology strategy. It's just not business. There's a front-end business owners who would think about how to attract new customers, how to deliver products and services, but it's for IT to be hand in glove to understand business and the latest technologies through which the IT will deliver to business. So it's not just pure business, but yes, it is business in real time for the IT function to look at, not just being the engine room, but also think the various hats, the business and strategy and technology as well. One more question that I have on from Tabassum. What is the BYOD policy? An interesting abbreviation that you have there. It's about bring your own device. Let's say Tabassum, if you have a smartphone, are you just using it with the WhatsApp application for chatting up with your friends, and of course for voice calls and some data calls as well? What if, let's say, the enterprise application, as an employee of a corporate, if you have to access the intranet from your phone, can you bring your own device, get connected to the intranet, to the corporate network, rather than using a desktop? Not that as an IT professional, you'll be able to code from a smartphone, but then there are some more smartphones as well. So it's more about the IT function to look at, can they implement the IT policy and enable employees to bring their own devices. There's something that you asked about the Cano model. The Cano model, and let me just go back to that. It's a way back, 1980s or so, is when the Cano model was a theory. It was about how product development and customers satisfaction should be looking at. It's for folks like us. Let's say if it's if a supplier, employees like us, what are we doing for the customers to ensure that customer sat is higher? Are we giving them the very basic requirements that are expected from the customer? And hence, the approach of suppliers is just adopting the Cano model. It's just about for us to understand, are we fulfilling the requirement, and is the satisfaction higher based on the framework that Cano provides us. Another interesting one, I'm sure these are, there are entrepreneurs as well, that the question, Chaitanya Kishore, from you, that what is the position an entrepreneur needs to take if he is looking at technology-based IT startup? I would say a ton of things. Every entrepreneur, the skills that you have to look at would be about the right skills. You can look at an IT startup, but then you also have to look at what about your employees? What about the back end, where it would be the applications and the technology that you would have to look at for all interior environment. And of course, when you're delivering to customers, will the right kind of employees and technology and infrastructure, all of that, be good for what you have invested in? There's a question from Mohit. What are the technologies included in web-based era? The web-based started way back. Is most about the internet, or for all of us to use a web browser and looking at www dot something. It's what are we? Do we have the access to internet? The technologies that were started back then were browsers. Was it only IE that we had as a browser? When did Firefox come in? The technologies included at that point in time was the HTML, moved over to the ASPs and the Java. At this point, it's much more. When you look at the web-based era, even that is going on now, it's about for us to look at a model view component. It's about for us to look at middleware, for us to look at even databases. So web-based doesn't really deal with only browsers and only internet-based applications at the front end. It includes the UI and middleware and database. All of that put together across, let's say, all the open source technologies on Java or on the Microsoft stack. Arindam, there's a question, Arindam Majumdar, from your side. That enterprise architecture is a framework and it is spread across business, data, technology, application domain, but it is hard to get a single individual equipped with all the skills. So how the organization recruits enterprise architects and what are the parameters? I completely agree with you. It cannot be all the skills under with one person. There will be people who maybe have done more on the data. Think about how has an architect looked at from the schema to tuning the databases, to the administration, and to ensuring how the distributed applications and data has coupled all together. The organizations typically recruit architects like those by looking at if there's one or two areas like those where somebody has even learned over, let's say, the last year, because there was a different, absolutely a different area for the people to go ahead and look at. It's more about the enterprise architect to look at, are there just about, let's say, a few months where the architect can go on and learn new things. The parameters that are looked for that kind of recruitment is simply the aptitude and the attitude and the ability to learn the new skills, given an architect has not only some experience of the technology, a particular technology or a particular area, but also the right mix of business, of understanding the landscape. Mohini, just a quick question. How are we doing on time?
We still have time, Ms. Neelam. You can take up more questions.
Okay. Akhilesh, mail question from you. How will BYOD benefit to IT company? Very simple. If there are a device that I have which can help me for the productivity that I can raise. If it's not about high-end computing, let's say an iPad. If I'm a manager and if all that I require is being on the network, ensuring that there are tools for planning all the computation, then why do I need a high-end desktop? I can get my own device, connect, and of course that will lead to the benefits for IT, not looking at necessarily a laptop that is required for me. Desktop or laptop is not required. The constraint that IT companies have is more about the security. What if I can get my iPad from outside, access the application and the data, which is not really something that as an employee I have to do. it's all the security breaches that as an employee, the IT company is looking at. The benefits definitely are reducing the costs and the investments for the infrastructure that IT companies have to go for each employee. One more, a very trivial example, but let's say there's somebody who's looking at a laptop with the connectivity to the network simply because they're only working from internet and the internet is not required. The benefits really would be for simplifying the infrastructure that is required, that is acquired. One more question from Neeraj Gupta. Which is more important, introducing new technologies or finding ways to improve business processes using existing technologies? Very good question, Neeraj, but it could be a mix of both. Introducing new technologies, let's say for us to tell the IT function that because cloud computing is the latest one, now please go ahead and add more servers or take the data on a public cloud. Is that really a benefit that we're giving back to the IT company? Not really. Somebody has to think about re-engineering. Somebody has to think about are we really making the security breach even more grave. Now, there has to be, it's about finding improving business processes. That can definitely be there, even if we don't have to re-engineer an application. But then, let's say, look at portfolio analysis. There could be 3 or 4 different applications that you can say those are duplicate applications across the entire process, whether it is at the start of the pipeline of a process till the end. So we can always use existing technologies and improve the business processes by cutting down on those areas. Funny, there's a question from you. Does the Chief Information Officer, or the CIO, needs to concentrate more on R&D and to become more innovative rather than focusing more on operations and fighting? Well, CIOs in the new age, what is expected from them is to wear an innovative hat, to think about business, not just managing IT. The focus on operations and firefighting and ensuring the lights on is a must-have. Every CIO has to look at how they can keep the lights on, but then yes, it's an imperative for the CIO to answer and be more responsive to what a CEO expects from the CIO organization. It's more about aligning the IT strategy to business and technology, which in turn will result in increasing revenue, ensuring that customers are retained, and of course the costs are reduced with operational efficiencies. So it's a mix of both, and in the reincarnated CIO, yes, they have to think about innovation and R&D and business. There's one more question. From BK, that should every CIO really think about technologies like big data, analytics, cloud computing, etc., unless there is a real reason for their respective business? No, not really. It's not critical for a CIO to mandatorily go over and adopt big data. It's more about let's say internal intelligence, which is assessed and tracked, not necessarily going on to cloud computing, but then if there is the right resources internally in the IT function, it's the best use of the existing resources that you have. If the business is more focusing on consumers, if it is, if let's say for an enterprise IT, if the use of resources is let's say through the Christmas time, the New Year's time, or through peak seasons where only not all infrastructure is utilized, then yes, the CIO can just think about cloud computing in an area like that, because it's like paper use, not really invest in taking on servers and the infrastructure at all times. So every CIO has to just keep looking at the technologies due to the reason of how they will get to increasing revenue, the required growth for that organization.
Well,
there's one question from Shrikant. Yes, Mohini?
no, nothing. You can carry on with the question.
Okay. So I'll say one last question on from Shrikant. What is the trend in the demand for IT project managers now, and what could be the future demand? I would say for project managers, if they have the right skills or the acumen from understanding the business, from understanding technology, for ensuring employee engagement as well, or wearing multiple hats for being a project manager. The trend is still on. The future demand is even higher, owing to all the different hats that I just talked about are expected from a project manager. We're not just looking at project managers who would be very operational and administrative in the IT environment. It has to be the right mix of business and technology, connection with the customers, engaging with the employees, and the future demand is just on a higher side. If you recall the graph that we had looked at, it is business analysis, project analysis. Those are skills where the CIO also is talking about the gap at within the organization.
Well, thanks so much, Ms. Neelam, for the insightful presentation. I'm really thankful to you for conducting this webinar. It was a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of this session would be available on techgeek.com by evening. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mohini. Thanks, everyone.